It's a good thing we'll have a recording of this. I guess when you get the recording too, if you can send Travis a copy for his records, that'd be great.
Thank you.
For sure.
All right. Well, we're going to start off with the Kentucky Manufactured Housing Empowerment and Improvement Program, an overview of Kentucky's price NOFO application proposal. This is the public hearing scheduled for June 17th, 2024. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, announced $235 million in funding authorized by the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2003 and Consolidated Appropriations Act 2024 for the funds to make up for the price NOFO. Today's public hearing will give Kentucky residents an opportunity to review the proposed application, understand the goals of the proposed price application, and provide comments on the application. Authorized under the authority of the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2023 and the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2024, the price HUD was provided the funds to roll out the price program and the NOFO that we are talking about today. Application first posted on DLG's website on May 31st, 2024. The Commonwealth's price application public hearing will be held today, June 17th, 2024, and Commonwealth's price application public comment period has been extended until July 5th of 2024. The submission deadline from HUD for the NOFO of the application is July 10th, 2024.
And now we'll go into detail on Kentucky's proposed price-funded activities under the Kentucky Manufactured Housing Empowerment and Improvement Program. We've divided this program into two specific activities. One, the Kentucky Rocks, or Resident-Owned Communities Program. The goal of this program is to preserve and improve existing manufactured housing communities by acquiring and converting them to resident-owned cooperatives and providing repairs, unit replacement, and infrastructure improvements as required. We also have the Kentucky Targeted Owner-Occupied Emergency Manufactured Housing Unit Replacement Program. And the goal of this program is to replace unsafe manufactured housing units constructed prior to the 1976 implementation of the Manufactured Home Construction and Safety Standards Program, also known as the HUD Code, that can pose a threat to the health and safety of very low-income Kentuckians. And here an overview of the expected impacts of these two activities. For the Kentucky Rocks program, we will support 6 rock conversions with accompanying infrastructure improvements, provide approximately 150 residents of those rocks with home repairs, including accessibility improvements, and replace approximately 50 pre-1976 manufactured housing units or younger units where rehabilitation is not economically justifiable. They're occupied by rock residents, and replace those older units with Energy Star rated new units. Under the Owner-Occupied Emergency Manufactured Housing Unit Replacement Program, we will target 100 owner-occupied pre-1976 manufactured housing units occupied by very low-income Kentuckians who face health and safety risks in their homes and carry a severe housing cost burden. They will also see their units replaced with new Energy Star rated units. We'll be operating this program on a subrecipient basis. Eligible applicants for price funding, if awarded by HUD to the Commonwealth, will be units of general local government and community-based nonprofit agencies. Any applicant must be in good standing with both the Department of Local Government and Kentucky Housing Corporation. And KHC will be working in partnership with DLG on the administration of this grant. Now we'd like to provide a little bit of background on the state of manufactured housing in Kentucky. As of September 2023, Kentucky ranks 3rd in the country in the percentage of manufactured homes that make up all new single-family units, and that's 29.3%. Kentucky ranks 9th in the nation in the percentage of housing units that are mobile homes at 10.9%, which is nearly double the national rate. And per the Kentucky Department of Public Health, as of May 1st of this year, there are 1,594 mobile home parks of record in Kentucky, with a total of 5,210 units. An analysis of the mobile home parks registered with the state shows that 99.1% are owned by individuals or small companies with less than 3 park holdings, with 90.9% of owners only owning one manufactured housing community, or MHC. And Kentucky, unlike many other states, has not yet seen a significant number of MHCs acquired by hedge funds, venture capitalists, or other institutional investors. And quote, mom and pop owners still control nearly all manufactured housing communities in the Commonwealth. In the Commonwealth of Kentucky, manufactured housing units are considered personal or chattel property and not real property unless both the land and the home are owned and the units permanently affix the property. And this poses challenge for owners of manufactured housing units who do not control their land. First, it limits owners' access to capital and also turns what would normally be an appreciating asset as real property into a depreciating asset as chattel property. Many residents of manufactured housing communities have split tenure where they own their own unit and lease a lot. And because it's very expensive and oftentimes physically infeasible to relocate a unit, lot renters may have no reasonable alternative but to agree to a manufactured housing community's owner's rent and community fee increases. This can place owners of these units at risk of housing instability due to increased housing, lot, rental, and fee costs. And as eloquently summarized by Enterprise Community Partners in a recent report they did on manufactured housing communities, the unique nature of living in MHCs generally make these tenants vulnerable to financial burdens and potential housing insecurity. And in the Commonwealth, there's a huge presence of pre-1976 and many older manufactured housing units. According to a 2016 report from the Virginia Center for Housing Research, or VCHR, at Virginia Tech University, 31,120 manufactured housing units in 53 Appalachian Kentucky counties were built before 1976, consisting of 19.8% of all manufactured housing units in the study area at that time. And as stated by the center, mobile homes built prior to 76 are considered the worst housing stock in America and suffer from poor conditions, including leaking roofs, dangerous or inefficient heating sources, lack of insulation, deteriorating foundations, and very high home energy costs, consuming, quote, approximately 53% more energy than every other kind of home. As part of this greater study of manufactured housing units in Appalachia, the Housing Center also identified more than 70,000 households paying more than 30% of their income for utilities alone in these unit types. And therefore, in these instances, new energy efficient units would offer households the opportunity for financial stability and, in turn, the opportunity to provide for their children, build wealth for the future, and age in place. And the study found that residents living in these older homes tend to be lower income, and for folks that have very limited housing options. So in some respects, they found that these types of homes may be the only housing options that low-income persons can afford in their communities. And despite this, these folks occupying these properties might not have the means to maintain, improve, or replace their homes as needed, particularly with these older units that face those housing quality challenges. So as we look to the future, when this program ends in 2030, we hope to achieve the following goals for each of these activities. First, for the Kentucky Rocks program, we hope to support the conversion of 6 rock communities to resident-owned cooperatives and provide them with infrastructure improvements to make those communities more habitable and sustainable. We also want to provide approximately 150 residents of these supported resident-owned cooperatives with home repairs, including accessibility improvements. We want to replace approximately 50 pre-1976 units or younger units as applicable with Energy Star rated units. And for the targeted owner-occupied emergency manufactured housing unit replacement program, the goal is to replace approximately 100 owner-occupied pre-1976 units where the owners are very low income and they face health and safety risks in their homes and also carry a severe housing cost burden, which means they're going to be spending over half their monthly income on housing. And we're going to get them new Energy Star rated replacement units as well. Provide a little bit more detail on each activity now. So for the ROCKS program, we will have any unit across the Commonwealth will be eligible. And therefore, subrecipients proposing programs can serve all 120 counties. And the activities we'll be employing that are eligible under the PRICE program are assisting manufactured housing unit renters and home site renters seeking to become homeowners with land and site acquisition, including for the purpose of creating resident-controlled manufactured housing communities, or ROCs. We'll also be providing support to establish resident self-governance of manufactured housing communities via ROCs. We also provide technical assistance to ROCs, working in partnership with ROC USA, the nation's leading authority on resident-owned cooperative creation in manufactured housing communities. ROC USA is pledged to provide technical assistance that will include, but not be limited to, property acquisition at a rate negotiated with the MHC owner, planning and implementation of infrastructure upgrades, facilitating financial and legal transactions, technical assistance to establish the ROC's nonprofit governing board, and ongoing support for the community during the lifetime of the project performance period. ROC USA will also provide debt financing for manufactured housing community acquisition and infrastructure improvements through its CDFI subsidiary, ROC USA Capital. And this project will use PRICE funds to offset the debt incurred to ensure that site fee residence owners will pay to the limited equity cooperative or remain comparable or reduced from the lot rents paid to the previous owner of the MHC at the time of conversion. Kentucky ROCKS program will also rehabilitate or replace manufactured housing units on an as-needed basis for ROC units that cannot meet the minimum habitability standards required by the Kentucky Housing Corporation Affordable Housing Trust Fund Home Repair Program. And this will involve replacement of pre-1976 units or younger units if repair costs are not justifiable with new Energy Star rated units. With assistance and financing from ROC USA, the assisted ROCs will identify and install needed infrastructure and amenity improvements, including but not limited to roads, sewer, water, parking, water retention, community centers, and recreational facilities. And these investments will also be focused on ensuring community resiliency to future natural disasters. Temporary relocation assistance will be offered to residents who have to be displaced during repairs and/or replacement of their unit. We also ensure residents of these ROC communities have access to housing and legal counseling, particularly assistance in converting their unit from personal to real property as required, and also providing the ROC board with legal assistance in creating and incorporating the resident-owned cooperative. Additionally, KHC, the Department for Local Government, and our subrecipient agencies to be awarded if the Commonwealth receives funds will incur administrative costs related for this activity. And to be eligible to become a Kentucky ROC, a manufactured housing community must be at least 25 occupied units, where at least 75% of lots are occupied by folks who own their manufactured housing unit. And at least 51% of their MHC residents must earn 80% or less of area median income. The majority of MHC residents must have a documented interest in creating a ROC, and the MHC owner must have a documented willingness to sell to a ROC. And importantly, given the risks posed by floods, as we've seen, unfortunately, with increasing frequency in recent years, an eligible MHC must not be located in a special flood hazard area. So you might be asking, what will happen to residents of manufactured housing communities who currently rent their unit and don't own it? Well, we will ensure there'll be renter protections in place for such households, following ROC USA's zero displacement standards when establishing a new resident-owned community. So during conversion, where a resident is renting an MHU, the resident will be permitted to stay and the landlord will be invited to become a member of the resident-owned community. And during the conversion process, if an MHC owner is selling the land to the ROC, also owns and leases units in the MHC, the ROC will attempt to acquire the units as part of the MHC acquisition and will continue to lease to existing renters if they choose not to acquire the unit from the ROC upon acquisition. After conversion, residents of units living in the ROC that are now owned by the ROC will be contacted to assess if they would wish to purchase their unit. If so, Rock USA, in conjunction with the Rock Board of Directors, will help the tenant with purchase negotiations and financing of the unit. Also, after conversion, the initial Rock lease with an MHU rental landlord requires a right of first purchase option for the tenant or a buyer who will become a member of the Rock if the landlord chooses to sell the unit. Additionally, the Department of Local Government and Kentucky Housing Corporation will also prohibit owners of rental units in Rock from using source of income discrimination against prospective tenants awarded vouchers from the following programs: Housing Choice Vouchers, or Section 8, Home TBRA, Continuum of Care, Emergency Solutions Grants, and Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS. Under the ROCKS program, we will also take efforts to preserve the affordability of these units and communities. There'll be a 30-year affordability deed restriction will be placed on each Kentucky ROCKS MHC's lots and infrastructure to ensure that they are available to low and moderate income households upon sale and conversion from existing owners. The project will also use price funds to offset acquisition and infrastructure improvements that incurred by the ROCK MHCs to ensure that site fees residents owners pay to limited equity cooperative remain comparable to or reduced from the lot rents they paid to the previous owner of the manufactured housing community at the time of conversion. And they will also ensure that such residents of these ROCK communities are only subject to reasonable lot fee and rent increases necessary to ensure the financial stability of the resident-owned community, and or pay for new investments and improvements prioritized by the ROCK board. And also, ROCK units receiving price-funded home repair or replacement will be secured by a partially forgivable loans for the cost of the repairs or the replacement unit with the owners of those units. They will be given adjustable 0% mortgages, and payments will be based on 30% of the resident household's income, and will be made for the duration of a 15-year period of affordability for those assisted, rehabilitated, or replaced units. And any mortgage balance remaining at the conclusion of the 15-year period of affordability will be forgiven for units receiving repairs and or replacement, as well as any program income generated by these loan payments will be allocated to the Kentucky Targeted Owner-Occupied Emergency Manufactured Housing Unit Replacement Program, to be discussed in detail in just a moment. So, reviewing the details of the owner-occupied emergency MHU replacement program. Again, we wish to replace approximately 100 pre-1976 manufactured housing units that are owned and occupied by very low-income Kentuckians who face health and safety risk in their homes and carry a severe housing cost burden, so they can get a new Energy Star rated replacement unit. All replacement units will be permanently affixed to the land and be recorded as real property, not chattel property. Replacement units will be secured by a partially forgivable 0% interest adjustable loans for the cost of the replacement unit. And much like with the ROCK repair program, monthly payments will be limited to 30% of adjusted gross monthly income for the assisted household. And payments will be made for the duration of a 15-year period of affordability, with any remaining balance forgiven at the end of that time. Again, much like the ROCKS program, all 120 Kentucky counties are eligible for participation in this program. And the following price activities will be eligible MHU replacement program activities. Again, it will be replacing pre-1976 manufactured housing units with Energy Star rated units, and this includes unit acquisition and installation costs, as well as removal and disposal of the old unit to be replaced. It will also include any temporary relocation costs needed to facilitate the installation of the new unit if the old unit must be removed prior to unit installation. We will also seek to provide housing and or legal counseling to assisted households, including help in recording unit as real property if required. And as mentioned before, KHC, DLG, and subrecipient agencies awarded funding under this program will be allowed to incur administrative costs. To be eligible for this MHU replacement program, assisted households must be at 50% of state or county area median income, whichever is higher. And we do this to ensure that our lowest income counties are not unnecessarily precluding many poor households from eligibility, given the low median income in many Kentucky counties. An assisted household must be able to document a 50% or greater housing cost burden to be assisted. The owner-occupied manufactured housing unit must be constructed before 1976, as well as it cannot meet the minimum habitability standards required by Kentucky Housing Corporation's Affordable Housing Trust Fund Home Repair Program, and has conditions that pose a threat to the health and safety of the residents. The household must currently own the lot on which their manufactured housing unit sits or have equivalent ownership structure as detailed in the bullet points below. And much like for the ROCS program, units cannot be assisted if they are in a special flood hazard area. However, under limited circumstances, we will allow for waiver requests provided that A, the unit is elevated at least 3 feet above base flood elevation. B, a stream construction permit for a floodplain is obtained from the Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet Division of Water. And C, the assisted household must maintain flood insurance. And I will offer the comment that flood insurance is increasingly expensive, so it might not be financially viable for an assisted household to make those payments. Therefore, any potential applicant must carefully consider assisting households with an elevation project to ensure that these very low-income households can afford to make flood insurance payments. If not, encouraging those households to relocate from the lot they own to a new location outside of the floodplain would be encouraged. Commonwealth will operate the Emergency Manufactured Housing Unit Replacement Program as a revolving loan fund to ensure that program income generated by mortgage payments from assisted households can facilitate the creation of more replacement units under this program. Additionally, as mentioned before, any mortgage payment revenue generated under the Kentucky ROCS program will be allocated to the Emergency Replacement Program as well. And KHC will allocate funds to existing subrecipients once we have a balance of program income sufficient to facilitate the replacement of an additional unit. There will be a KHC's and DLG's discretion about which subrecipients will receive these program income generated units. And we'll go over the proposed project timelines. And again, these are rough estimates based on HUD anticipating and making funding decisions in October of this year. So for the Kentucky ROCS program, we will utilize the period after HUD awards funds until the end of March 2025 to finalize program design, to alert potential applicants about the notice of funding availability that will be forthcoming, and the estimated date of the NOFO and its due date. This will allow potential subrecipients time to identify manufactured housing communities that can be targeted for ROC conversion, and to conduct initial outreach to owners and tenants of those MHCs to assess their interest and identify any potential barriers to ROC conversion. In April of 2025, we plan to issue the NOFO for this program, with applications due in August of 2025. And in that period, applicants will finalize the MHCs to be assisted under the Kentucky ROCS program. From October 2025 through January 2026, the Commonwealth will issue awards to subrecipient agencies, and environmental reviews will be completed, and we will work with those subrecipients to build relationships with ROC USA and help them finalize decisions on which communities will be assisted and targeted residents for replacement and repair. And during the performance period, and there's a typo there, it should be from February 2026 to August 2030, ROC USA will engage with owners and residents of the manufactured housing communities selected for the Kentucky ROCS funding and support those selected manufactured housing communities as they transition to a ROC. The subrecipients will identify ROC units in need of repair or replacement and provide home repairs or supply replacement units to eligible households until those repair and replacement grant funds are exhausted. And by September 2030, or earlier, if all price funds have been exhausted, the Commonwealth will close out the grant with HUD. And under the Emergency Manufactured Housing Unit Replacement Program, will follow a somewhat similar but more condensed timeline. Again, from October through January of this this year and early next, we'll finalize program design and alert potential applicants about the notice of funding availability. And potential subrecipients will initiate outreach to owners of manufactured housing units in their communities that meet the eligible criteria. We'll issue the notice of funding availability in February 2025 with a due date of May 2025. We will issue awards in July of 2025 to subrecipient agencies and then conduct environmental reviews following that so funds can be released. We anticipate release of funds in September 2025, at which point the program will be underway. And through August 2030, or until funds are exhausted, subrecipients will provide replacement units to eligible households. And again, in September 2030 or earlier, if all price funds are exhausted, the grant will be closed out. And during that performance period, the Commonwealth will also allocate any program income to subrecipients to facilitate the replacement of additional units as funds become available. Here is a quick overview of the price budget. I will not go into detail on these particular line items, but you will see that we will have significant portion of funding for the acquisition and conversion of 6 resident-owned cooperatives. We have significant funds also allocated for improvements to those resident-owned cooperative communities with infrastructure and other investments. We will provide loans and grants to assist owners and residents of manufacturing units in both ROC communities as well as participants eligible for the Manufactured Housing Replacement Program. We also anticipate a small amount of relocation costs while folks are displaced during repair or replacement. And we also have about 5% of funds allocated to administrative costs for subrecipients, DLG, and KHC. Please note that this budget, which is available in the draft NOFO, which you can find on the DLG federal grants website, does not include any leverage or anticipated additional funding that can contribute to activities under this program. We have established relationships and partnerships with the following organizations to help facilitate and improve the impact of these 2 programs that we propose. As mentioned before, ROC USA is the nation's leading entity on the conversion and management of resident-owned manufactured housing communities, making sure those are sustainable resident-owned cooperatives. We will also be partnering with Kentucky Weatherization Assistance Program, who will target eligible resident-owned community and resident-owned communities residents for weatherization assistance program energy efficiency improvements. Helping with that targeting of those weatherization assistance funds will be Community Action Kentucky and their member agencies, which provide services across the Commonwealth. The Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet has pledged to target resident-owned communities and emergency replacement program residents who are eligible for the forthcoming Solar for All program to help them place solar panels on their homes along with accompanying battery storage as applicable. The Kentucky Manufactured Housing Institute is the industry group representing manufactured housing manufacturers as well as manufactured housing community owners. They pledged to assist with outreach and negotiation for replacement unit costs. FAHI and the FAHI Kentucky Caucus is a coalition of community-based housing developers, primarily serving Appalachian Kentucky, who will assist with both outreach and identification of eligible units, as well as bringing additional resources to the table through their other programs, including Kentucky Housing Corporation home repair and home buyer funding, as well as other agency funding, including that may be available from the United States Department of Agriculture Rural Development Program. The Kentucky Association of Counties and the Kentucky League of Cities have pledged to support outreach to their members to facilitate their application for price funds should the Commonwealth be awarded those funds by HUD. They will also assist their counties or their members in identifying potential manufactured housing communities for targeting. And we've identified some leveraged or additional funding sources that could help expand the impact of the price fund investments. Most notably, Rock USA Capital has pledged up to $12 million in financing for manufactured housing community acquisition by resident-owned cooperatives. The Department for Local Government has pledged up to $3,353,572 in community development block grant funding for the redevelopment of the infrastructure and site development needs of Rock MHCs. Additionally, should any Rock MHC be located in a CDBG disaster recovery eligible area, again, that will be either Western or Southeastern Kentucky, following the tornado and flood disasters that have received HUD funding via the CDBG DR program. They will also be eligible to apply for assistance for these infrastructure improvements. The Cabinet for Economic Development has pledged to, has available matching funds under a new program to recipients of federal funds who need matching and or leverage dollars. So therefore, any subrecipient of price funding would be eligible for such assistance. Additionally, Kentucky Housing Corporation will prioritize Affordable Housing Trust Fund home repair program applicants who choose to partner with price subrecipients to provide additional rehabilitation dollars for these activities. Additionally, KHC subrecipient developers who already receive home repair and or home buyer development funds may also choose to use those available funds to augment the investments made in ROCs to ensure the greater impact of these investments. The Kentucky Weatherization Assistance Program will target eligible price-assisted households for energy efficiency improvements in partnership with Community Action Kentucky and its members. And finally, the Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet will target Solar for All program funding to eligible price-assisted households as well. Public comment period, sir.
Yeah, so to close out public comment period, to reiterate, the Commonwealth's price NOFO application will be accepted until July 5th, 2024. You can send written comments via the DLG inbox at dlg.ofg@ky.gov. You can also send written comments via mail to Department for Local Government, Office of Federal Grants, 100 Airport Road, 3rd floor, Frankfort, Kentucky, 40601. And just please make sure that you mention attention Office of Federal Grants price application.
Well, thank you very much for watching this public hearing related to the price NOFO application the Commonwealth will submit by July 10th, 2024. Again, I'm Curtis Stauffer with Kentucky Housing Corporation, and this is Travis Weber with the Department for Local Government. Thank you.